children and parents who have no notion of really what is a mom. And then we can see, well, Jesus told John, this is your aunt is now your mother, and your cousin is now your son. Jesus told James, the widow is your mother, and the orphan is your son. There's no other religion than to take care of them. Jesus told Matthew, son defends his father, and then the father will defend his son before the angels. And it goes on. He was very clear about redefining what is family in a much more strong, committed fashion. Yes?
I'm just wondering if this picture that you painted with this loss of even a definition or even just like a vision or hope for what family looks like, if starting there is a better place, that, you know, like, it's important for them to dialogue about what the causes are, you know, and how society has fallen down. But is it better to start with beginning to create that vision of what a family or
Stephanie, right?
Yes.
I think you're right. I think we need to put a hook in the beginning. And for me, the hook is, but I think the hook is where they're at rather than Scripture. I think the hook is what Ulysses told us. Orfandade é a isca para colocar no começo desse modo. It's what we need to launch the module. I have not been through that. Somebody's going to need to produce that. What is orphanhood? But I think this is, they're longing for family. They're half-imaged. They're searching for meaning and food. I mean, these are all things Ulysses went through. He lived on the streets. I'm working with a church now who hosted a soccer tournament for 150 children during the World Cup. They did an incredible work. And I was working with them madly, day and night, and then I figured out halfway through, wait a minute, all the members of this church call their pastor father. And he talks from the pulpit that he's going to give them a fatherly blessing. And I'm thinking, wow, I think we got into a sect. This is a sect. What kind of teaching you guys have here? And he's got rooms he's built all over the church for these people to live in, all these youth. And they all eat at this table. And I'm thinking, well, maybe it's not a sect. Maybe this is just something the Lord is doing in response to orphanhood. Creating a new theology and a new church structure and a new blessing and a new pulpit ministry and a new that I need to learn from. So, yes, Stephanie, this is what we need to address early in this. What is orphanhood? Which will automatically generate the issue, what is family? And then the Bible can come in as an answer. And that's where I'd like to see this in already at the end of the first sub-subject. The biblical image of family is this, and then we will make it a little bit more broader as you have proposed. Of what is the God's heart for the orphan? So guys, we need prayer. I found my beautiful wife called 7 years before I met her to do exactly what I was called to do in the same city. And then when we compared notes, we realized we were both prepared for the same ministry by reading this book. And then I found out, hey, I'm not the only one that found his match reading his book. And then I found out Viv had 40 people praying continually for the writing of that book. That is not his book. So you guys, if the Lord is in this Matul thing for us, a certificate program, maybe we need to be taking this whole issue about prayer very seriously to launch these modules one by one onto a system that have relevance, that people will say, ah, that's me, when they hear it.
Yeah.
What's the answer? And then see the module as a time of self-ministry so they can minister to others. So,
John,
I'm outside of my ballpark, yes.
excuse me. This coming August, the founder of Orphan Care International is coming here in Manila. It would be good if one of the Matul coordinators would speak. with her. And there are groups now in the Philippines, Christian groups, that their advocacy is for every evangelical church to adopt an orphan. And that is because they don't believe anymore in orphanage. They want a family setting. And so their advocacy is for each Christian church to get one orphan and the whole church care for that orphan.
Okay.
Yeah. So and we are sort of
And you're doing your part.
yeah.
Thank you for that. The Lord is not absent. If we want to get to know God up close, we're going to need to get to know Him as God, to follow the orphans. That's biblical. I didn't actually read the purpose of the first section. Heighten awareness of the plight and proximity of these children by explaining what is orphanhood. Consider the disastrous consequences to all if they are not prioritized by the church. And I would put in parentheses, as the only legitimate change agent. Explaining the church as catalyst in knitting the family, the school, and the community of faith together. Present biblical view of family where God is central. So that's the purpose of the first hour of listening. The second hour of teaching. We won't fit that in an hour, will we?
No.
So how many there things?
I think your first 10 to 15 minutes should be vision casting, the problem, the solution, the vision, the passion, and then the last 15 minutes should be of the first 30 minute audio would be some biblical principles. You're absolutely loaded with stuff in the first hour. It's really, you've got 2 hours there.
In that first hour?
Yeah.
Okay. 15 minutes of vision casting?
Well,
You're thinking too fast.
I'm thinking that each course will be, this is talked through, 30 hours, 14 hours of teaching in the course that's listening, and that's be 28 half-hour lessons. So it sort of breaks down into 30-minute lessons. I'll talk about that later.
Okay.
But the first 15 minutes of that first lesson, the first half of the first lesson, should be some sort of compelling vision casting. This is the problem. This is God's vision. This is why you are doing this course.
Okay. I think we can adjust it for this, using the vision as orphanhood and the biblical version of radical family style as the solution. The second one is children are the door of the kingdom. Now, where did that come from? Matthew 18:1 and 2 says what? The disciples were arguing, and Jesus said, "Ha, I have a solution for these troublemakers." And he goes up to a child and he kneels down to the child to eye level. And he says, unless you become as one of these children, you can't even begin to imagine or experience the things I've prepared for you in the kingdom. In other words, you guys are looking at the kingdom from the outside. Wait till you get inside and find out what it's about. But for you to get inside, you're going to need to kneel down and look at these children eye to eye. And then he embraces it and teaches the others through the use of children. So as I see, the kingdom is through children, childlikeness. And so I've got resources there that talk about qualities of these children that emanate kingdom principles. Objective then from this section, I put it as Andrew because it's what we can learn, as adults can learn from children. Evidence that the health of the existing and future church depends on investing in a good program with children. They will teach kingdom truths and restore kingdom feelings so that those in the church will be more focused and of one mind and spirit. Does that ring a bell? Acts 2 and 4. They are the subject, or they are the object of our affections and the worship toward our Savior. So true theology is living out your faith to the least of these that are among us. That's what true theology is all about. So it's an opportunity for now adults to minister be ministered from children. Let the children minister to you. So what can they teach us? They can teach us kingdom truths. They can teach us kingdom priorities. And they can teach us kingdom principles and kingdom feelings. Now the feeling touch part is not really what we are going to get in an academic setting. But the others we will. So we put that feeling part in there because we can learn from children that feeling. What is compassion? What is repentance? What is fear? What is joy? So have a look at these descriptions. See what you have to say about it.
I think you may need to strengthen who the child is, the valuing of the child. But again, certain cultures don't value young children. I mean, they love them, but they don't value. And to be able to see in a child, the capacity for them to even instruct or guide an adult, maybe tout them onto just a radical understanding. That's difficult for I'm the adult. What do you have to tell me? So I think that needs to develop further. I agree with what
How
you're
do
saying.
we do that in an hour?
So,
Of lecture?
so I'm going. Yeah, I'm thinking of the whole thing too. I was going, boy, this is really significant aspect of it.
Can you make a child pop out of the cell phone of these kids and sit in the driver's seat and say, hey, listen to me?
There's an enormous amount of good material on this produced by Scripture Unity.
Okay.
And also, in Genesis 5, 1 or 2, somewhere around there it says, and he made them in the image of God, male and female in the image of God. And the female child is in the image of God just as the male child is in the image of God. And that needs to be hammered home when I was in PNG. So just that line in there.
Coming from India, that needs to be very, very
Yeah. So I'm also, because your question can come back to me is I think a key one, because it's not just teaching these principles and ideas, it's how do they live that out. It's one thing to know I'm supposed to be open to a child guiding me or introducing, but that dynamic, the pedagogy here is, needs to be fleshed out a little bit more.
Isaiah 11, 6, 7 verse says that a little child will lead them.
Right. So it's one thing to give me biblical data.
I think the biblical data is there.
Yeah, I know you have that.
To make that valid,
Yes.
we will have to tell a story about a child rescuing war victims from death type of story. It's going to have to be, we will need, I don't know if we have to bring stories into this to make it. Did I use up our time?
I'm just stretching my legs, I'm really sore.
Okay, well, you let me know when it's time to shut down. I don't have an answer for you, Mark.
No, but I think it needs to happen. I do this with seeing young people. I work with a lot of youth workers who are trying to work with youth, and they get all this intellectually, and they have a heart for it, but they don't know. They haven't seen young people or children, actually become agents of transformation, right?
One biblical example is that Matthew 21 passage. So what happened? What was the first thing that happened when Jesus cleared out the temple?
Yeah, that's different. They'll accept that. I think.
No, but what happened there?
I think your stories.
Do you remember what happened there? The Pharisees pounced on him and wanted to tear him apart, but the children were there singing.
Yeah, I know that part.
So in a sense, we could redeem a story like that?
No, I think maybe either tell a real life story, or maybe have a video, little snippets of children just sharing whatever. Their understanding of the kingdom of God, or an example. That's tangible. They can see that as real,
so,
rather than just a
3 minute
concept.
video fits into this program at this point? John?
Yeah, I can deliver anything or we can, by some means, deliver whatever works for you. So you come up with your stuff, and then the technical bit's the easy, inverted commas, bit. So I don't want to technically constrain you at all. So you come up with something that's passionate, good, alive, and then we'll find some sort of system to make it happen.
I don't think it's hard to find a live story, even a child telling it, or a mother telling it, or a missionary telling it, or showing it happen. I mean, these things are
have children speaking into that.
Use the kids' voices.
Yes, don't. It's not adult telling. Because that's transformative in the capacity and ability of young people to actually speak truth about the kingdom and what they want to see happen.
Very good.
It empowers them too. They get excited because they're like teaching and they're sharing what they're passionate about.
Great suggestion.
Yes.
We'll do that.
That said, there are
Any further comments here? You can look through it.
That said, there's also stories of children with impacted lives who don't physically have a voice to be able to share it. I think about Olivia shared with us last night a story about a young woman in Dubai and the impact that she had in teaching you and helping you not to be afraid in a moment. And that's equally a beautiful story. It also gets at ableness and breaking down some of those barriers, which is a problem of why some children are on the streets, is because their parents didn't know how to handle them.
We can find stories, and even in our own lives.
Yes.
And they have their own stories who are listening to this.
Mm-hmm.
They need to see the relevance. Let's pray this through, guys. Okay, I'll go to the next subject. Number 3 of 6. Should I pass it on? Okay, let me just go through the main subjects then. With the children as object of our teaching. Remember that the last section was children are the source of our teaching. They are teaching the adults. Promote an educational view towards children's ministry. Challenge leaders to embrace a more holistic view of childhood development and heighten the need that the church will assume their unique role in bringing meaning and inner healing to the deep recesses of small and teenage children. So I propose 4 holistic views of child formation. One is the Luke 2:42. The other one is one based on Matthew 19, where he laid his hands on the child and brought about healing. The other one is sequential growth, from head to heart to hands versus from hands to head to heart. And the other one is, what does it mean to parent a child and pastor a child? So these are 4 models of holistic development for the child. The 4th subtopic, building a curriculum in the church, or in the community, or in the school that is going to meet the needs of these children. What curriculums can be used? Get needed to understand that as a business model, this is the best return on investment, what you presented today. In 17, it will produce 17 times more than what was invested. That's on TED Talks. But they will have to go to the long-term approach. They are the change agents in the communities, and these are the future leaders. So it's a 10-year or 15-year ministry before you begin to see what you're looking for. Most churches are not prepared for that, neither are foreign missionaries willing to pay for that. So we're presenting in this the attractive side and the economic side. Childhood development. Here, these 3 first items are the 3 philosophies of childhood education would fit into here. And then faith development. How do we develop faith intentionally in children? How do we develop leaders intentionally in children? Make them entrepreneurs, for example. What a lesson we had this morning. How do we do relationship development intentionally? In the family, among friends, and in church. And then the 5th subject, how do we get missions started in children so they grow up as missionaries? Saturate the world around these children with kingdom activities. Supplant the media with interactive projects in the community, using games, camps, social projects, visits, outdoor classroom experiments, and so on. Ultimately, it comes down to a time element. They are won by the ones who spend more time. Quality time is not enough for the children. So we need to think of full-time ministry with these children if we want them. Worldview formation, worldview enlargement, worldview discovery, and worldview engagement. We have the opportunity with children to get virgin packages, virgin tapes, and create mind mapping, DNA engineering, to the point that their whole outcome in life is a result of those first 6 years of excitement. Instead of protecting them, like all of us do, expose them to as much as possible. Unfortunately, my children didn't have a choice. They were exposed to everything and everybody. And so, what do you imagine they're doing today? They're chasing languages and eating them up like breakfast. And they're traveling, even if they don't have money, they make it happen. And they're doing missions, and they're after it. Because they've seen God at work. But that doesn't happen in their teenage years, guys. That happens in the early years, when you take them to the door and make them knock on the door and make them share their faith. We did this with children this high, sharing their faith with flyers. And that night, the children made it a point to pray in our house for the person who was sleeping on the street, after they had witnessed to that person that day. 5-year-olds, 3 to 5-year-olds were doing the work. So don't belittle them just because they're small. Okay, I can go on about this. I get excited. Anyways, there's tons of stuff out there to use in this that we can tap into. The final subject is equipping the leaders with practical ideas, tools, models, strategies for children ministry. Heighten the need to prepare well the educators and evangelists and healers. Challenge the leaders to get the older children to prepare the ministry tools for the younger children and to do things from scratch. They'll gain ownership and learn by doing. Keep the Bible text as central and build personal and communal applications. So these then would be a final listening hour of putting tools into these pastors' hands. Suggesting a final project. Bill, I don't know if this is part of the certificate program, that they have to produce something after each module. But here would be a proposal that they either do a relief work with children, or a development work for children, or a reconciliation with children, or an advocacy by the children, or they do a cooperative project interlinking public, private, and religious sectors. So these would be then a conclusion to the modules, challenge them to go out and do something in one of these areas. So we need more time for this module. The 28 hours. Now I see it's not 28, it's 30. So maybe something.
Whatever else it is.
Yeah, I think the best we can hope for is to stir an interest and get them involved in a local project, and then go after the M2U at the master's level.
You're after paradigm shifts.
You're after paradigm shifts.
Yeah.
Then you can do,
And the rest will happen more naturally.
some things are more naturally, some skills you can do. That's, most skills are what you can do.
I'm a little go back to the before the last one, before methods. And you were giving your example of your children going out there. I just would be concerned that, again, giving them these ideas without the tools and understanding child development, how children gather things, that they may end up trying to indoctrinate their children rather than help facilitating their learning, and this becoming part of who they are rather than this is what the adult tells me I have to do or believe.
We are taking one part of the module to teach the three levels of philosophies of education.
Yeah.
One would be indoctrination, and the other would be constructivism.
Yeah.
So the lay leader will need to be aware of those three and basically decide what is appropriate and what is biblical. And so I don't want to go to the merit of what is right or wrong,
Yeah.
what is practical, and what is going to function, but I think that we just need to launch the basic idea of these three areas. And this is a continual struggle. We have to
Sure.
struggle today in our school.
Right.
What is best for these children?
Well, indoctrination is not the best thing, but
On the other hand, I mean, if they don't know how to read and write,
well,
they
that's
won't
not,
be able to go after their own tools.
that's not indoctrination,
Well,
that's learning.
but it is accused as indoctrination.
Well,
We've had problems with
I mean, in
that.
terms of discovering, also maybe when those aspects of how they relate to these aspects of it. So always letting them know that as they're talking and developing and sharing knowledge, that there's different methodologies about doing that
Okay.
that is developmentally and culturally appropriate. Right?
Thank you. All of you.
But it's great stuff, and that I like the way you laid out the final project, and that's it, because you have different where they are, right? With, for, by, those things are really, really strong.
Folks, I think we should give thank you to John.
Absolutely.
And I can see you visibly wilting around the room. And just wondering if John and HR is looking going to lead the presentation. HR is also.
We can. It's just we haven't had much to. We've been just sort of bombarded today, so we haven't really had to.
So we have that combination. Then we need to look at the tools, commission, structure, future, directions, meetings, etc. I'm wondering if some are leaving early tomorrow. HR, I know, is leaving with somebody else to the airport. Who's going with you to the airport? Michael and HR will be leaving. Anyone else leaving early in the morning? John is leaving with this next discussion. And Corey is away somewhere, some country. Makes discussion quite difficult tomorrow.
Can we do the discussion today?
We can, if you're able to keep awake. Would you be open to that, to concentrate so we keep us going, and then we have dinner, and then we really zero in on the vision and the future of the commission?
I'll just zoom through this. I don't think it's going to be very long. So.
No, this is important.
It's what?
This is important.
It's important. Okay. Folks, this is the grass. Oh, what is it called? I think. This is the feedback from the grassroots report. There was myself, HR, Amanda Sanchez, Andrew, and someone else in the group. What? Olga. And so this is a fairly quick summary of our thinking. We sort of came down to approximately 30 hours per subject.
Can you just hear my big voice if I speak like this? Okay, I'll get rid of this. There's too many microphones and too much feedback. Okay, we're looking at 14 hours of audio, and as we talked about the practicality of listening to audio, HR and Andrew both said 30 minutes is better than an hour. They felt. So 30-minute audio, and at the end of the audio, the last minute or so, you give 3 reflective questions, one very easy one, and then a couple of others to help them think about it privately, because some cultures don't like being asked questions in public. So we have 28 30-minute MP3 files, including some questions for personal reflection. And then later we have 16 hours of face-to-face, for instance. It can be any way. It can be 4, 4-hour sessions on Saturday, or it can be, 8 2-hour sessions, whatever works. So, but say we did the 4-hour sessions, then we break down the 28 into 7 lessons, so that you can do 1 lesson per week, or 1 lesson per day, and then on Saturday, you're there, and you discuss them. You review on Saturday in using face-to-face stories, reflection, culturally appropriate scenarios, and the sayings and aphorisms, so that the Saturday becomes like the old TEE review sessions. I don't know if you're familiar with theological education by extension, but it's a time when the material that has been digested during the week is then reflected on and dug down into it. Questions are asked about the material. So it's not so much a delivery time as a time of working on the material that has been read prior. The technical delivery structure will be a Los Angeles-based tech team, some interns from Fresno Pacific University that look like will get on board, and of course a local in-country tech team that will, most of the institutions have access to someone who can do that. But we would help. I will get for instance, a USB, SD card duplicator. I can duplicate hundreds of SD cards, ship them off to your country relatively cheaply, and things like that. So we have one lot of expensive equipment in one place, and then we can serve all the centres from there, rather than you having to maintain that kind of stuff when up in hot, dusty conditions, or where it might just get stolen. So, okay, trainers, we're looking at 3 levels of trainers: a national coordinator, a trainer facilitators, and then the individual, the facilitators in groups. Now, the national coordinator should curate the content. Now, this is a very big discussion on its own. It's something I've been going through for probably 13 years now, how to curate content. Because in the late 90s and early 2000s, people were running around the world handing out these hard drives with 10,000 ebooks on it or something like that. And they would go with gigabytes of data. Here you are now cultured. You've got, 10,000 books of literature, so you are now cultured. And of course that's totally ineffective, it's not culturally appropriate. So how do you create the content, curate the content? And basically, first of all, it has to be curated by language, obviously. And some countries have many languages in them, and we'll be using hard languages in some cases. So you might want Hindi and Tamil in India, various Kiswahili and other languages in Africa, and so you curate your content by language, and then you have to curate it by theology, because theology is a barrier to the spread of content. So the Baptists will accept certain content, the Pentecostals will accept certain content, but to get content that's acceptable to both Baptists and Pentecostals is often rare. So some of your reference material, not necessarily the module course itself, but some of the other reference material that you may or may want to use has to be curated by language, and then by theology, and then by utility. The local pastor in most parts of the world is an extremely pragmatic person, but when they look at a program, as long as their bishop says it's okay theologically, they say, is this any use to my church? Is this any use to us now? And I say, useful, not useful. And that's a fundamental pastoral question. And they'll say, oh, we don't need this stuff. Or we do need this stuff. This is just what we need. So you curate by language, you curate by theology, you curate by utility to the group. The facilitators, you have your 20 facilitators in a group. You have your group of 20 students with a facilitator on top, and then a bunch of these facilitators under someone who trains them. So with your fees set locally at whatever the urban poor can afford, the urban poor pastor can afford, 80% of those fees should go to the local facilitator, 20% to the trainer. We saw some of that in the talk the other day. And so that's a mistake. National coordinator has his own ministry, his or her own ministry. That's a typo in this one. So, okay, contextualization. was some discussion of this. We need to bring the martial subjects into learning modalities of the urban poor church planners. Now, I was involved in something in Papua New Guinea and Port Moresby in the late 80s, where a lot of, I won't give any names here, but a lot of people flew in from a particular seminary in America, and there was these very big shot local pastors, but they were concrete relational thinkers. They were geniuses at building tribal relationships, and they had sort of mega churches under them. But these guys would fly in from this particular seminary, and they would talk missiology and this concept and that concept and the other concept, and the pastors would sit there like frightened rabbits. It was like talking algebra to athletes. They were concrete relational learners, and this was presented so conceptually that it was just, and it eventually humiliated them until the point where they rebelled against the program. It was a train wreck, people were hurt, stuff went everywhere, blew up our missionary society. It was just, it wasn't evil. It was just, it was taught in the wrong learning modality, so that people cringed. Now, so we have to ask, how do people learn? Now, in a very tribal area, some people will only learn outdoors. Australian Aboriginals will only learn through dance, or dance, however you want to pronounce it. And so there are certain people that are kinesthetic learners, some are outdoor learners, some will not learn indoors, they are frightened of learning indoors. When you're dealing with grassroots people, particularly grade 6 education and below, they have a narrow range of learning modalities that they are comfortable with. And anything beyond that, it's frightening. Like if you give me a big thick book, I'm okay with that. Right? You give someone else a big thick book and there's like, woo! Right? And so people learn in different ways, and they have certain ways they're comfortable learning, and the people on the ground need to know what learning modality works, and we need to present it. Now, most people, audio works pretty well. It needs to be less abstract and, of course, to incorporate action and reflection. What are some of the tasks the Martel Commission and people in this room face? Prepare some curriculum to start with that we can use as a test bed to get this thing running. Deliver digitally. The digital delivery bit, it's just work. It's not that complex. Get enough volunteers, get enough people, get enough equipment, crank the handle. It's not really hard. It's just a lot of long, boring work. Fortunately, I've got this guy called Bob Barrington who comes in for 3 days a week. He's an electrical engineer and he loves long, boring jobs. I don't understand it, but he takes a lot of the burden out of my life. And so he can fix broken links and web pages, all sorts of stuff. So you get a bunch of those people and the digital delivery isn't that difficult. Discovering the national and regional coordinators, they may be in this room, they may not. And these people, every international project I've done, particularly involving technology, particularly involving anything new, you want a national board of reference. And I will get generals, I will get politicians, I will get the most senior pastors in the country, and you need someone who gives validity to the program. The board of reference doesn't do anything. The board of reference is just simply names that go on the letterhead, and they may occasionally make a phone call to sort something out. But you have some big shot Pentecostal guy, some big shot Baptist guy, some big shot Wesleyan guy, and some gents and some mayors or people that everyone knows, and then that gives your program kudos across the country. It's also very helpful if you've got to import anything, if you've got to import a bunch of computers. I do import them by container load, 400 computers in a container. Getting them through customs in any country in Asia was a hassle, but I would have a general ring up customs and say, we need those computers, and they would come out of customs. And so I always tried to get the highest possible people for board of reference, and a regional coordinator or a national coordinator is very respected. Doesn't have to do much, he just has to be very respectable. And then you have to have the trainers. You need to train the trainers. This movement can do that. And then we train the facilitators. There's a line left out there of training the trainers. then who train the facilitators, and then we need to ensure sustainability of the program. We're working out a model. We'll try it in one place, saying, does this model work? So that the people feel comfortable keeping on doing it. People working among the poor cannot spare money. If they lose 1,000 pesos, it's a disaster. They really cannot work for free. They might want to, but they're not going to work for free long term. So we need to be able to pay them. Then we need to find someone to be a global coordinator, administrator. Could be based in the USA, could be based in India, could be based anywhere, but who becomes, other than myself and Viv and other people, but who really starts to take ownership of the program and takes the burden of the paperwork and admin involved. So that's my thoughts at the moment. Viv, you had some other thoughts? What? Did you? Anyone want to throw anything into the pot? Oh, by the way, I want to say that I don't want to technically constrain you at all. If you want video and not audio, video can be done. If you want ebooks, ebooks can be done. Right? So I'm just saying that's a simple pathway. But whatever you develop, the technology's there, it can be done, it can be put on an SD card, it can be put on the internet, it can be made to happen. So I'm not there to jam you into some sort of delivery method. I'm just starting with what I think would be the simpler end of the scale. But you don't have to necessarily go with it. If you're in a particular area where people love big colourful pictures, then we will do big colourful pictures. Whatever you need in your, the technology side, it's not infinite. We cannot produce 1.5 hour Hollywood quality epics. That's not going to happen. If you ask me something ridiculous, then I'm going to say it's ridiculous. But brief videos and things like that, they're within the realm of possibility, but you will have to produce video. I can't produce video. I'm horrible at producing video, but I can distribute the video that you produce. And so that's my thought. What's your thinking?
Thinking, let's get HR to present.
Yeah.
So we've got, John's talking from the top of the world.
Yeah.
Now let's take it from the bottom of the world. Where HR is working at the grassroots, delivering as a training network. And then let's see where these two meet. Take your time. Yeah.
So how we are going to link vocational with the module program, just a chart here. And we are trying to make the module students instrumental for the vocational training given to the slums. So this is what just I made the picture to respond to Viv's questions previously. Mission India has a 28 grassroots level training centers. I'm not responsible for those trainings, but just I went through what they are doing and tried to analyze and how we can make it better. So just I was rethinking on the courses being delivered. So it is a vision for grassroots evangelism and church planting, and to see what they are doing. They have 28 training centers, apart from Mission India Theological Seminary. It's almost, they began 96. Almost 6,000 lay Christians were trained. Then out of 6,000 trained lay Christians, around 1,200 are still working with Mission India Trinity churches as grassroots workers. And in 20 years, Mission India grassroots evangelists could convert around 72,000 non-Christians to Christ. So just reporting what they are doing. And the target population is Christians from local churches who can read and write in their respective local languages, read and write. Then the training methods, what I have observed, training methods are, say, like they teach in local languages, like in 28 centers, have 28 different languages. And it is campus and curriculum-based formal education. And their curriculum takes seriously the 3 domains of learning: character, knowledge, character, skill. Then the trainees are expected to read the additional books and write short papers with the help of library. And they are required to participate in the extracurricular activities of the seminary. They are sent for weekend educational and evangelistic outreach ministry. They are required to assist their local churches during a month of Christmas vacation. And these are the courses they are offering. And like English Grammar, Bible Survey, History of Israel, Indian Society, Character Formation, Introduction to Theology, Matter Indian Religions, Evangelism and Church Planting, Gospels, Ministry of Prophets in Old Testament, Pauline Epistles, Educational Ministry in the Church, Biblical Principles of Leadership, Principles of Preaching, Biblical Principles of Counseling, Introduction to Church History. And the trainees for this training, they used mostly theologically trained Bible teachers or pastors who are already trained and who have bachelor's or master's degree. And they use very rarely mission practitioners. So just I analyze the training program going on in these 28 centers, and they appreciate for the vision they have for grassroots evangelism, and then grassroots training of local language, that is very essential to develop local church planters. Grassroots trainees are mostly theological training graduates and rarely mission practitioners. So I would like them to use more mission practitioners than the theological trained people for grassroots training. And then trainees are required to be able to read and write. So they give admission only for the people who can read and write. Then my question is, what about the illiteracy? Almost 26% in India and 16% in urban and 32% in rural are illiterate. And that is what Jones has in the audio way of presentation makes a lot of difference. And what about the illiterate when how we are going to train them? So that is another question. The trainees are required to be in the campus most of the times during their trainings. So needs more experience-based learning, less times in the classrooms and more times in the activities. And this is a grassroots training, and we don't expect them to be in the campus all of the 1 year of training. Rather, most of the time they should be in the field and less in the classrooms. Then what I observe, they have only formal education, but I would like them to include non-formal and informal mode of trainings, because grassroots training is not mostly on the formal base, but it is more on non-formal and informal way. And then a curriculum-based training they have, courses to be designed as for the local context and the training and learning capacity of learners. So I require just my suggestion to them would be, like, instead of finding out a set curriculum from somewhere else or someone else, but trying to develop a curriculum according to the local context. 28 centers they have, 28 different languages, 28 different locality, and using the same curriculum may not be effective. So that is what I found there. So grassroots training, sometimes we misunderstand what it is. It's a basic assumption that every member of a local church can be an evangelist. Every member of a local church can be an evangelist. Only the things that to consider that he or she should not, she does not know how to do the job of evangelism. So the local believers, the believers of the church, can be considered the evangelists, but the problem here, they do not know how to do evangelism. And that is what the basic assumption. And only the things we need to make them understand how to do that job. But at present dispensation, the church has reduced the ministry of evangelism to either paid staff or a gifted person or a seminary trained missionary. So when we talk about the reality of grassroots training, so but at present what happened? The ministry of evangelism is reduced to the theological trained or paid staff. It means it is not giving that much importance to the believers in the church. So the church believers are to be used. That is the available source. So non-unpaid leaders should be developed more, and the church has to be trained. Then a philosophy that the training needs to be taken to them at their context, and not that they be brought to a seminary or school. It's not necessary for the grassroots training, you bring those people to the seminary and you keep them in the campus. But this training should go to their locality, and then we should train so that in the local context they should be engaging in the community and be trained. And training could be from very basic to more comprehensive. It looks to be basic, but more comprehensive. Then grassroots training may be regarded as an elementary preparation of the lay Christians with a basic skill of presenting the gospel in a given situation. Needs a holistic curriculum in the program that deals more with social, economic, political, and spiritual. Keeping in view of this holistic context, socially or economically, politically, spiritual, these are the major areas to be focused when we develop a curriculum. So then I suggested going through the courses being offered. So based on the Indian context and keeping in view of the transformational leadership perspective, so I developed 12 courses. I just remodified 12